All right, guys. Now it's time for our macro unit 3 Tlfrs or Tlfrs. Um, Equations. 1 over MPS times G, maximum change in government spending, the government spending multiplier. Remember, the MPS is a marginal propensity to save. Uh, it's a reciprocal of the marginal propensity to consume. The tax multiplier is the MPC over the MPS. That's supposed to be the MPS down there. Let me draw that better for you. Look at this. It's a live action shoot. There we go. MPC over the MPS times change in taxes equals change in aggregate demand. That's the tax multiplier. Remember, that's one level weaker than the government spending multiplier because the first round of government spending goes directly to GDP. However, the tax multiplier, if you get a tax cut, a certain amount of it has to be spent. The other amount could go into savings, just like the stimulus check we got, right? In a sense, that's a tax cut. The MPS determines how much the multiplier will be used out of that. Balanced budget multiplier is 1 times the change in government spending. So if we raise taxes and government spending by the same amount, don't forget aggregate demand still goes up by the amount of government spending change. If you didn't watch the videos on the long run aggregate supply curve, now would be a really good time to do it. To make a long story short, here's our long run equilibrium when it comes to using the long run model. So if you ever see anything about long run equilibrium in macro, you have to use the long run aggregate supply curve. You have to use LRAS when you're drawing long run equilibrium. There it is, right? Price level on the y-axis, real GDP on the x-axis. Y is full employment, okay? And we have that at the long run aggregate supply curve. It should be going up through the middle there. It's just a little askew. What does a recession look like? A recession is where the long run aggregate supply curve is to the right of equilibrium. So we're at a temporary equilibrium short of full employment. So under these circumstances, how would the recession fix itself? Well, remember how a recession cures itself. Prices go down, and in the short run, that benefits consumers that still have jobs. They're able to buy more things. In the long run, wages go down. The long run in macro is the time it takes wages to adjust to prices. So in the long run, wages go down, and that short run aggregate supply curve, right, will shift out thusly to short run aggregate supply prime, right, restoring equilibrium at full employment. You might ask why I didn't show the Keynesian range here. It's not necessary. I just graphed the upsloping range on the curve, just corresponding to the upsloping range. Inflation, same idea with inflation. We have the long run aggregate supply curve. We've got the short run aggregate supply curve and aggregate demand. In this case, there's an equilibrium that's established above full employment. So prices go up. What happens in the long run? Workers will demand higher wages. Short aggregate supply will shift back. It will be back to equilibrium on the y-axis. So in the short run, a recession, or in the long run rather, a recession cures itself by aggregate supply shifting out. In the long run, inflation cures itself. We go to a sustainable position, not an overinflated position, back to the long run aggregate supply curve. So these are the big ideas for this unit. Again, it's not everything on the unit, of course. We've got shifting aggregate supply, aggregate demand, stagflation, a decrease in aggregate supply. That's another macro unit 3 Tlfrs. But I can really conceive of a test based on these items here, especially the multipliers, using a lot of calculations to know if you know how to do that. Maybe a basic long run graph showing that you know how recession and inflation would cure themselves and how that might look on the graph, and then incorporating a lot of multipliers. I suspect in addition to these multipliers, right, we'll have a bunch of multipliers thrown in with the money multiplier and with monetary policy. Don't forget the crowding out effect, right? Government spending up, interest rates up, business investment down. That's the direct relationship between government spending and interest rates, and we show that on the loanable funds market. In fact, it's probably so important, I should make you a little graph of the loanable funds market. Right? Let's do that real quick. Okay, real interest rate and quantity, okay? When government spending increases, demand goes up, real rates up. Government spending goes down, demand goes down, real rates down, okay? But those rates work in the opposite direction that you want them to for fiscal policy. If you're trying to cure inflation, you cut government spending, right? Rates go down, business investment goes up. Dollar depreciates and export goes up. Consumer spending on finance item goes up. Looking at it on the other side of the coin, right? We increase government spending. Increasing government spending drives up demand in the loanable funds market, which is the market that we're in, right? Loanable funds. Demand goes up in the loanable funds, driving up interest rates, leading to less business investment, less consumer spending on finance items, and causing the dollar to appreciate, hurting exports. So those are the real serious criticisms using the loanable funds market of discretionary fiscal policy. So keep those in mind when you're going through as well. All right, see you this week, or next week, or whatever week it may be.